If you're over 40 and want to be the best version of yourself, Fit Over 40 with Coach Clarence is here to help.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Coach's Corner. As you guys know, this is the spinoff of Fit Over 40, where I have a coach who comes on, or an author, a mentor, or someone who's good at what they do. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Tony Lopes. I say it right?
Lopes, Tony Lopes.
I knew I was going to screw it up, man. I was trying not to look at my notes. Tony Lopes, ladies and gentlemen. He is the CEO of Dirty Boots Capitals, which I got to ask him about what that means. He's also a real estate professional. He's a best-selling author, coach, and speaker. So, Tony, let us know a little bit about yourself, how you got to here.
Well, Coach Clarence, first and foremost, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure. And before you hit the record button, we were already getting into things and chuckling about stuff. So this is going to be a lot of fun. So for the listeners, for the viewers, stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of fun with this. So the biggest thing that I want to add to the intro there is I was able to retire at the ripe old age of 44 years old, right? And I say that not to be braggadocious, Coach, right? I don't say that to be braggadocious. I'm a humble person. I don't need to be braggy about things. I say it from the standpoint of integrity. Like, I've done it. I know where folks are at, mentally. I know you do a lot of mindset training, right? Financial training, things like that. I know where folks are. I've been there, right? And so a little bit about my backstory is, I didn't get to retirement at 44 because I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Absolute opposite of that. My family was very blue collar, and my parents were immigrants, and they came to this country. They saw so much opportunity, Coach Clarence, so much opportunity, and they handed down the tablets to us kids, and they said, you know what? Go to school, you'll get a great education, you'll get a great job, and you'll be set for the rest of your life. That's what they taught us, because at the time, 50 years ago, that's what worked for the most part, right? There was a lot of loyalty between people and their employer, employee and employer. And so there was long-term job employment, there was pensions to be had, there was financial stability. It's different today, right? And so I was handed down those tablets, go to school, which I did, get a good education, which I did. I got a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and an MBA degree, right? Probably like a lot of your listeners and viewers out there. I'm no different, right? I went to school, got that, and then I got a good job, which was great for 4 years until I got laid off.
Yeah.
And nowhere in that mantra that my parents handed down was it's go to school, get a great education, get a great job, and then you're going to be laid off, right? That wasn't in the mantra. So I had to retool. I had to rethink, how do I do this, right? How do I get to retirement? How do I get to more freedom and a life of abundance and all these things that we truly want? Uh, it's not like the school system is teaching us these things. So that's why you and I and others get on these podcasts to help people kind of think a little differently. So that's why I'm here today, to help you, to help people out there, kind of spread the word and kind of do better, achieve more in life, as I say.
Yeah. So you wrote a book of Freedom at Risk. And I think that'd be you should just reprint it right now, especially every election season. You could probably sell more copies. Tell us a little bit about Freedom at Risk, because that can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. And I didn't want to prejudge or assume I knew what that meant. So why don't you explain what Freedom at Risk means?
Yeah, I appreciate that very much, Coach Clarence. Yeah, because, a lot of folks don't realize that our freedoms are being stolen from us each and every day, little by little. It's just happened in a lot of different ways, right? A lot of different ways. Um, a lot of folks this time of year with election season, it's perceived that it's the politicians foremost that are stealing our freedoms, and they do, right? With the way they do things, there are freedoms being stolen there for sure, absolutely. But there's other ways our freedoms are being stolen as well. So in the book, what I do is the first part one, I walk through 5 chapters of how our freedoms are being stolen. I talk about the political system. Number one, how our freedoms are being stolen by the political system. Number two, the education system. How is the education, by the lack of education that we're not getting through the education system, how does that impact us? The cost of college, right? And being requiring these hefty student loans to be able to go to college, and that reduces, our financial ability to buy a home when we get out of college and start our generating wealth, because we all know real estate has been for centuries a great way to create wealth for real estate, right? And if
Absolutely.
coming out of college, you're not able to do that because of the education system requires you to pay hundreds of thousands for an education, and you got to get loans, right? It just that steals our freedoms right there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I talk about that. I also talk about the economy, right? The economy through its cycles of boom bust has a way to steal our freedoms from us. So I talk about the economy and just knowing these things, right? Just reading through and starting to really absorb some of these ideas, you start to think different. You look at the world different, right? I'm not trying to create a bunch of people who think like Tony Lopes. I'm not, right? What I'm really trying to do is get people to think different. I don't want them to just follow CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, right? They're not teaching these things. Okay. So we have those first 3 chapters, talk about the political system, the education system, and then also the economy, how that steals our freedoms, all 3 of those. Then we also talk about society. Society itself steals our freedoms, right? And so we as a society all too freely give up our freedoms to the government to solve these problems, right? Whereas we ourselves, it starts at home. How many times, Coach Clarence, have we heard that? It starts at home, right? Teaching your kids good manners, good, how to be a good person, right? All these different, that education starts at home in a society, with good values. So society is the 4th chapter. And then the 5th chapter, I talk about the monetary system. And I don't want to scare people. This doesn't read like a textbook. It doesn't. It just, again, introduces some concepts that we are inflating the dollar, right, in our monetary system,
Yeah.
which results in decreasing our purchasing power, right? We've all heard it, right? Grandma and grandpa used to go to the store to buy a loaf of bread for a nickel, right? Go with a nickel today. You can't.
Yeah. You
Even
can't even
with
get
a
the little
dollar.
candies anymore.
Exactly. We used to go to the what we call we lived in the city, right? And in the city, nothing but apartments surrounding us because we were blue collar, right? I won't say
Right.
we were poor, but we were lower middle class. And so we'd go to the local corner store and we'd buy these penny candies, right? Penny candies don't exist anymore.
Hmm.
So we talk about in that 5th and final chapter, we talk about the monetary system, which it's so important to understand these concepts, which the education system, again, going back to that, the education system is not teaching us, right? So I lay that framework, Coach Clarence, I lay that framework, those 5 chapters, easy to read in part 1. Then in part 2 is where I really start to get people to think, because I start introducing what I call the a la carte package to help people decide what they may want to do. I'm not giving people a must do, you must do all 10 things. No, it's a la carte and you can choose off the menu. So I break it part 2 into 2 sections. I talk about personal freedoms. So I talk about things like if you have the ability to get a second citizenship and a second passport, that will give you more personal freedoms to travel a little more freely. And if things go a little haywire in the good old US of A, it gives you more personal freedoms to travel and go different places and stay longer. Great. Personal freedoms. You may also want to have a garden in your own backyard, right?
Mhm.
Because we've all heard the stories of tainted lettuce or tainted fruit, things like that. At least in your backyard, you know where your fruits and vegetables are coming from. So I go through this list of for personal freedoms, you could do this, 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 and this. And I talk a little bit about each one. And again, each person who reads the book is going to select different things. And that's okay. I'm just trying to get people to think different. And then I obviously talk about financial freedom because, to get to freedom, obviously, like greater freedoms, it does require a certain amount of financial freedom, a certain amount of wealth. So I talk about that. And um, so we talk about, real estate. I'm big into real estate. It allowed me to retire at the ripe old age of 44 years old. So I believe real estate is a great way to do it. But if that's not your bag, that's okay. I
Yeah.
talk about creating a business, some other business that's going to create some good cash flow and some equity. Maybe one day you want to sell off that business or spin it off in a couple of different ways. I talk about creating a business. I talk about asymmetric plays, which is nothing more than a fancy term to say buy low, sell high. And I use the example of like Bitcoin. Bitcoin was a perfect asymmetric play, right? Years ago, we could have bought one Bitcoin for like a nickel. Uh, there's very low with an asymmetric play. If you lose that investment, it's a very small loss to you, right? Say you bought 100 Bitcoin back in the day, for very little money, very low if Bitcoin, failed and went away. But if Bitcoin, like it did, went to, I don't know what it is now, it's like 60, 70,000 for a Bitcoin. If you had bought back in the day, you have a very nice gain. You are probably a multimillionaire at this point, right? Depending on how
Yeah.
many you bought. So that
Right.
has a very big gain with it on an asymmetric play. So I introduce these different things because again, the education system isn't talking about asymmetric plays, right? They're not talking about that. They're not talking about creating financial freedom. It's us, me, and you to educate people and get people thinking differently.
Right. All right. So you talk a little bit about personal and then business. Why is that important to connect those two? Did I lose you?
So, you know, I'm sorry.
I thought I lost you there. I thought you froze or something. So I was just really curious about you talked about personal and business. Why are those two important to you? Focusing on those.
Yeah, so having a business, whether it's a real estate business or a business, having a product that you sell, you create and sell, you're actually being productive. You're creating something people need. If it's real estate, you're creating housing. You're filling a void that exists out there. So you're being productive, right? You're being a productive member of society, which people will pay you handsomely for, right? So, one of the things I share with folks is, like sometimes when I speak with young people, which I love chatting with young people. It really gets my mind going. You know, they start saying, "Hey, I'm going to go to college for this, whatever it is, say marketing." And
Mhm.
I say, okay, great. What do you want to do with marketing? You're going to come out of college, you're going to have some amount of skills, you're going to be marketing. What does that mean? And so we get into the conversation. And so I start understanding what they do, what they want to do, and I help introduce the concept of, in some cases, we talk about AI, right? Artificial intelligence, and how that can potentially change a lot of jobs out there, right? So for marketing, you know, I don't know about you, Coach Clarence, but I use a lot of virtual assistants
Yeah.
who use AI to create, snippets of video, to create, different copy that I use on my website, that I use on social media. AI is out there. It's being, what do I need a marketing person for? So we have this very important conversation of, when you get out of school in 4 years with a marketing degree, you got to be really careful that AI isn't going to eat your lunch. So for your audience, right? Fit over 40, right? We're talking to an age group that probably has kids either in college or soon to be going to college. That's one thing, a conversation I would have with them and try to understand, how is AI going to impact my child in 4 years when they come out of school. Technology advances so quickly, so
Correct.
fast these days that in 4 years, AI is going to be amazingly different than what we know it to be today. So you got to think that through and say, if my kid is going to school for even today, like computer programming, right? Like software, writing software code. That's already AI is already being used to write software scripts,
Yeah.
right? So you got to really look at it. And I say, the best way to position if I wanted to go to school and be like a software engineer, which is a very noble profession, right? I just got to be careful. I want to be either on the front end of that, of understanding customer requirements, right? Working with the customer, because AI is going to be able to pull the customer requirements and develop the software. You need a human interface there. So I would want to be on the front end, dealing with the customer to get those requirements, translate it into my geek speak, as I call it, right? Into software jargon, feed it into AI, let AI do the work. And I might also want to be on the back end where it gets implemented into the world, right? If you have an end user, you need to train that end user, right, on how to use this new software. You need to work out the bugs. Oh, I thought it was going to come back red, but now it's blue. Okay, I need to fix that. That's an error, right? So you with AI, I think you got to think about a couple of those things on where do you end up in 4 years when you graduate, and am I really going to have a useful degree or not?
Gotcha. So I'm hearing a lot of mindset, which is a favorite subject of mine because your mindset has always got to be adjusting with the times. You can't think like
Yeah.
50 years ago, as you alluded to earlier. Based on your background, how did you develop your mindset to get to where you are right now?
One word, and it's a very important word to me. It's discipline.
Mm. Do
Right?
me a favor
We
and
have the
before you go, or excuse me, define your version of discipline because it's funny is I talk about discipline and what it really means to different things, but in your space, how would you define discipline?
discipline for me is just uh, having the tenacity
Mm,
to break down barriers that maybe other people are saying, Tony, you can't do that. Have the tenacity when you fail, you get back up again and you run again towards that wall that
that's
you
right.
just crashed against, right?
Yes,
It's
sir.
having that tenacity to keep getting up, right? I look at it, and right now, it's happening right now. The Paris Olympics, right?
Correct.
You look at these athletes. Did these athletes come out of the womb knowing how to do what they do? All we were watching gymnastics last night, and wow, these young women are just like phenomenal,
Yes.
right? With what they're capable of doing. And then we were watching skateboarding and the flips and the tricks they're doing with skateboarding and these swimmers. I'm like, what? Did they come out of the womb knowing how to do that? Did they always like swim I don't even know what it is, like a 60-second lap or whatever it is? Like, no, it
No.
took years and years of discipline,
Yes, sir.
right? Waking up at 3 a.m., right? Waking up at 3 a.m. to start, making your breakfast or start your job because you got to get 3 hours in before you go to the gym for another 3 hours. So then you can have lunch and, you got to have your food prepared and da, 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 right? That's all discipline and scheduling your day and just having the mental fortitude to keep with it day after day. As I share with folks, when I started in real estate, I had folks who, believe it or not, it's a very different world today. Everybody is very positive about investing in multifamilies, which that's the space I'm in.
Mhm.
But when I started 20 years ago, people were kicking me in the teeth, coach, right? They were kicking me in the teeth. They want to be a slumlord, right? We all heard that term, right?
Yes.
Slumlord. You're
Yeah.
gonna be a slumlord. You're gonna get phone calls at 3 o'clock in the morning that the toilet's backing
Yeah.
up, and they
See,
were filling my head with fear and negativity, and I just had to have the discipline to push through that,
yeah.
right?
They're pushing a lot of
So
their own thoughts on you. They're projecting on you.
yeah, yeah. Which, I share with folks, I look at, and again, maybe this will help your listeners to kind of maybe think things differently. I kind of think about our life progression in four categories: survivor, success, significance, and legacy. And so I'd ask each one of your listeners to kind of think about where they are. And you can think about this in a bunch of different ways: personal, business, family, right? So Survivor, I think of like, hey, when a kid graduates from college, they're just starting out, they're surviving. They're trying to survive paying their rent, paying their student loans, paying their electric bill, right? They're just starting. They're
Mhm.
surviving, right?
Yeah.
They're in that category. And hopefully they don't stay in that category too long. Hopefully they'll move to the category of success, right? So where are we? Are we in survivor mode, or have we passed survivor mode and now we're successful and we've achieved something? We have knowledge, we have a good network, we can create wealth, we can do different things that are going to be either proactive or productive in what we do, right? So now we've achieved a certain amount of success in our lives. Great. Okay. Now what do you do with that success? You can just keep doing that over and over again. But like me and you, we're in our lives of significance. We've achieved success, which is great. But now we want to have a more significant being. We want to be more significant and help people be better, achieve more in their lives.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very noble thing. So we've gone from we've both been survivors, we've both had success in our lives. Now we're going to a life of significance, wanting to help people, right? And so the fourth level is legacy. And I define legacy as something that exists well long after you and I are gone, right? And so I look for people to say, okay, where are you if you're, in your family life, right? You can look at this from a your family perspective, how things are going. You can look at it if you're in business, if you have a business, you can look at it from that perspective. Your own personal well-being, you can look at it. Where am I, like, as a person? Am I in survivor mode? Like, do I go to the casino and I gamble? I mean, is that a good trait that I want? Do I want to be known as somebody who goes to the casino and just keep feeding the slot machine? Is that helping me achieve more in my life? Right? So am I just playing survivor mode right now? Or maybe I'm in a very successful, maybe I'm a very successful businessman, businesswoman, and I make good money and I have a very good high prestigious. Great. Congratulations. But now, how do we push to a life of significance, right? The next level, right? How do we go from success? And God bless you, you've achieved success, kudos all over the place. But now, we as a society, I go back to society, which I write about in the book. Now we have to help others,
Right.
right? Us doing these podcasts, we were kind of joking before you hit the record button. These things cost us nothing but money, right? We have editors, we have social media people. This costs us money, but that's okay because we're successful. We have cash flow, and we use that to boost our life of significance to help coach and train other people achieve more in their life. And
Yes.
that's important. We should be doing that. So if you have success, think about how you can achieve a life of significance. Maybe that's just simply coaching your kids, a little league team,
Mhm.
right? Doing something, or being a tutor, right? Or teaching a college course at night after you get off of work. Go teach a college, whatever it is, right? I don't know I'm sure we have a very diverse audience here, so just I think it's a case by case basis. Everybody has to think about it for themselves. But again, I'm just planting seeds, Coach Clarence. I'm just
Mhm.
planting seeds for people to now think about where are they in these four levels, right? With survivor, success, significance, and legacy. Where are they there?
Gotcha. Talk to me a little bit about Renters Nation. I'm curious your take on that because I see it definitely going in that direction.
Yeah, so we do a ton of research
Mhm.
on what's happening in this country, in the good old US of A. And we look at a lot of different trends. Obviously, I'm in the multifamily space. I want to make sure that me and my investors are protected, right? Whenever you're handling somebody else's money, it's almost like, you know, uh, I gotta like quadruple check my math when I'm handling somebody else's money because it's important, right? These are
Yes.
people's life savings. So so when I talk about renter nation, what that terminology means is we are becoming a nation of more renters of apartments than
Mhm.
there are people going out and buying homes. And
Right.
so I'll give you a couple of maybe statistics here. So um when you look at the category of 18 to 29-year-olds,
Hmm.
we are at the highest level in history of 18 to 29-year-olds living at home with their parents.
Yep.
We're at the highest level ever. During the World War, World War One, World War Two, you see it peak up. It got to like 49%, but we're
Yep.
at 53%
It's
of
crazy.
18 to 29-year-olds living at home. Okay. Do you think those young people are gonna, when they decide to move out, they're gonna buy homes?
Well,
Maybe,
probably
maybe,
not.
maybe
Depends on,
some,
yeah, if they saved or if their parents hooked them up, you know.
right? Exactly. Maybe some, maybe a percentage. I'm thinking maybe 20%, but 80% of those young people are renters.
Right.
They just are, right? So
Hmm.
that's one statistic, that we carry forward. The other one is the average age of the home buyer these days. The first time home buyer is 37 years old. That's the average age of the first time home buyer, 37 years old, right? It's not like it used to be when somebody came out of high school, maybe they worked a few years and then, in their young 20s, they bought a starter home. Remember those small ranches they could buy for like, five, $6,000? It's not like that anymore,
No,
right?
it's
You
not.
can't do that when you're in your early 20s. So what that means is if they're a first-time home buyer at age 37, then they're a renter from the time they come out of college until age 37, they're renting for longer. So we have this huge trend in a lot of different ways how we're trending to be more a country of renters than we are of buyers of homes.
Correct. 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 What do you think about all the corporations that are doing that? They're buying up all the properties, and what's the way to stop that? Or, I mean, you as an investor, you're obviously saying, hey, get in while you can and take advantage of it. But what are some things we can do to get more people in homes?
Yeah, so as far as the large institutions like, the Lennars and the Blackstones that are buying up these are actually building these communities, what's called build for rent, BFR, build for
Bill
rent,
for
where
rent,
they're
yeah.
actually building small homes that they rent out. So I think they're doing, I would say, um a good thing for the public because at the end of the day, a lot of people want to have the white picket fence and the nice backyard and a home they can kind of call their own.
Correct.
So these large corporations are creating these homes with the white picket fence in the backyard. People aren't going to be able to buy them for a lot of different reasons, but they can rent them. So as far as the atmosphere, the American public still gets the atmosphere they're looking for. The white picket fence and the grassy backyard and a dog in the yard and place for the kids to play in a safe neighborhood. Great.
They get all.
That's Americana right there. So I think the large corporations are doing a good job there.
Mhm.
As far as Americans who want to kind of have the same wealth generating opportunity that our grandparents had and our parents had. I think it comes down to more financial education, like the work you do, right? With over 40, right? It's
Mhm.
it's not just with fitness. It's not just mindset, it's also financial education. You're a real teacher out there, Coach Clarence, right? You're teaching folks how to be fit financially. And we
Correct.
need more of that because the school system, as I said, they're not teaching it.
No,
And
they
so we
don't.
need to educate young people to do better, to save and invest in the right way, right? We need to start having those conversations with kids even before they get out of high school and go to college or graduate college and go on to the first. We got to be having those conversations before, and that's why I love having conversations with young people, because their heads just explode when we start talking about these things. They're just so open to it. It's almost like they're hungry to hear these things, because they hear things like Social Security is going to go bust.
Let me ask
And
you
they're
this.
looking at it, and they're like, right? They're looking at it and it's like, I'm never going to be able to get Social Security. It's going to be gone, right? It's in the headlines. It's going to be gone before I get there. So they're like, yeah, they're not counting on it. They're looking at the price of a home and they're like so deflated, like their emotions for these young people. They're like, I'm never going to be able to afford a home. I'm going to always have to rent. And, they're so deflated. So me speaking with them, it just encourages them to say, yeah, you can. It's just a matter of getting that financial education that like you and I are teaching folks.
So let me ask you this. If a parent buys your book, is it teachable where they can teach their kids, or is it mainly geared to an older crowd?
No, so a little thank you for asking. This is kind of a little funny backdrop story that, maybe not everybody hears, but when I started with the book, it
Uh-huh.
wasn't supposed to be a book at all. So for your listeners, for your viewers, it wasn't even supposed to be a book. I don't have kids, but I have a niece and I have nephews, right? Many niece and many nephews. And so I knew they weren't getting this education of how their freedoms are at risk. I knew they weren't getting that from school, right? So I said, I want to put together 20, 30 pages, what, we used to call a white paper, right?
Yes.
Technical speak. I want to put together 20, 30 pages of what I saw going on and some things they could do to protect themselves
Okay.
and do better financially and personally as far as freedoms go. So I was the guy in the coffee shop, and you're gonna chuckle because we've all seen that person at the coffee shop that's sitting in the corner with their laptop, just banging at the keys. That was me. Many months, after a lot of research. It took me actually 5 years to write this book and get it published, right? Um, so it took me 5 years to do this book, but it was initially geared towards young people, my niece and my nephews who are just coming into their own, starting, their 20s, to be able to see the world and
Mhm.
how it actually is and what they need to do. So I wrote it from that perspective. So it's very applicable for young people to pick it up and read it. I've gifted it to so many young people out there. So yeah, it's geared towards that. But I've also had many older people who have read it and said, "Wow, this is great. I can read it." They have a busy life, right? Your viewers, your listeners, they're busy, right? So they can pick this book up. They can read it a chapter at a time. Super easy. And I've had people I can pick it, I can read it a chapter at a time, put it down, come back the next day or 2 days later, read another chapter, and they can get it, right? So super easy read for all levels.
Okay. And then what are some actionable steps if someone's watching this and they're inspired? What are some things they can do to start developing their passion and making their plan?
Yeah, so some things they can do. Well, you mentioned it right there. It's like take action, right? Some of the things that are available to us, I didn't have available to me 20 years ago, right?
Right.
Things like, listening to a book on audio, right? Or watching a YouTube video, right? That's free. That gives you great educational, material. Uh, find something of interest to you. If you're interested in stocks and bonds and things like that, go watch some videos on stocks and bonds. I mean, the videos are free. or go
Right.
to your local library or go to Barnes and Nobles and pick up a book on investing in stocks and bonds. And you know what? There's all these apps out there that you can load to your phone to trade stocks and bonds. Start slow, get an education, maybe find a buddy who's already doing it and start, right? It starts with taking some action, right? So what is it? What is it that you have an interest in, right? Start there. If it's investing in that way, great. If it's gardening, right? And you've never, I was chatting with a person just yesterday and they were saying, I don't have a green thumb. Well, you know what? You're not born with it, so let's develop it, right? So
Right.
go buy some books and let's start reading. And how do you condition the soil? How do you position the plants? Is it full sun, no sun? How much do you water? Right? You start learning these things. And so it takes action, right? And some of these things are either free or very cheap in terms of buying a book, right? To go off and take some action and go do.
Yeah.
So,
I just did a podcast last week. Just I was by myself, and it was about mindset around money. We're about in the same age group. When, what are some beliefs that you were held as a youngster that that a lot of people still have that are holding them back financially? Because I can tell socially from how I grew up, how people talked about money. And a lot of times when you believe that stuff, it becomes limiting beliefs. What were some of the beliefs that you thought that now you've gotten successful doing what you're doing that you're like, man, I can't believe I used to think that?
yeah, so I don't know if it was a cultural thing that, my parents coming from another country held on strong to, and transferred to us as young adults, and kids and young adults as we grew up. But one of the things looking back on was a very strong, and they were very proud people, and I think it's because they did it all themselves,
Mhm.
right? And so they were very proud. You know, I came to this country, I did it myself, nobody helped me. I, found a job, I saved money, I bought a home, nobody helped me, right? It was that sort of thing. It was like it was a pride thing. And it was like, so I was left with the impression like, oh, I have to do everything myself, which is not true.
Yes,
It's
it's true.
actually not true. That's a very poor way to think. We have people out there who are experts, right? And when I look at my real estate business, I look at it and I say, I would never be where I am today if I did everything myself. Every time I needed to write a legal document, I'm going to write it myself. I didn't go to law school, right? So I find the person who did and I hire them, right? And I write the check and they're the expert. If I need somebody to go fix a roof, right? I don't go fix that roof. I find the person, the who, that knows how to do that, right? And
Yeah.
so once you open up your idea to the idea that you don't need to solve all the problems, you don't need to know how to do everything. There's experts out there to help you,
Mhm.
right? Um, you open yourself up to that thought and you just explode from there, right? I was buying multifamilies that were, a handful of units, 6 units, small multifamilies. But then I switched my mindset. And let me see, well, 2 months ago in May, we closed on an apartment complex. And again, this isn't braggadocious, but this is a mindset thing, right? Which I want to get across. Uh, we closed on an apartment complex, 153 units, right? I say that from the perspective, if I had a small mindset and I said I had to do everything myself, right? Do all the due diligence, raise the capital for it, go to the banks, go to the insurance, if I had a small, mindset and said I had to do it all myself, we would have never closed on that. We
Right.
would
It
have
would
never
took you
had
forever.
the joys, and the riches of having that property.
Yeah, it would have took you forever.
So we gotta. So there's one book, other than my own. There's one book that I recommend, to folks. And again, it's cheap. Go to Amazon, right? These books are cheap, right? It's called Who, Not How by Dan Sullivan.
Yes.
Very easy read. I read it in 2 days, right? I read it in 2 days. It's a very easy read. Who, Not How. A lot of people are traveling these days, going on vacation. It's summertime right now, right? Go pick up the book, read it on the plane, go into your destination, sitting by the pool, whatever it is. It's an easy read. Who, Not How by Dan Sullivan. Great book.
Speaking of books, I sent my information to get your copy, so I'm going to read it, and then I want to come on and tell you what I think, and we can switch roles, if you will.
Yes.
So I understand you have an offer, which same offer I took advantage of. Share that offer for the listeners if they want to get your book.
Yeah, so the best way to get my book is to go to Amazon. That's the best way. But if they want to get one even at a reduced rate than what Amazon sells it for, I'm happy to ship them a copy as well for a reduced rate. So all they need to do is shoot me an email, right? Tony Lopes at dirtybootscapital.com. Put book in the subject. Real simple, put book in the subject, and then just type me a message, whatever they want to message me, and then we'll start the conversation that way. But I'll send you a book at a much reduced rate than what Amazon is going to sell it for. So I'll leave that out there for
All right.
folks to
And
connect with
we'll
me on
put that
that.
in the show notes as well. Tell me about the name Dirty Boots. How'd you come up with that?
So investing in real estate and why I do real estate coaching is because investing in real estate is very different today than it was 20 years ago when I started. And
Mhm.
so I see some folks who get into it and then they have trouble, they fail. And that's why, you have these stories out there where, ooh, be careful, real estate is very risky. You're going to fail. You're going to be a slumlord, right? These people are out there saying these sort of things because they heard about horror stories from others who didn't do it the right way.
Right.
So, Dirty Boots Capital, really, the name comes from doing real estate. You have to get your boots dirty a lot of different ways.
Mhm.
I've done fix and flip, and I got my boots dirty on the ground, literally like walking through construction sites. I've done new construction. I got my boots dirty walking through those new construction sites. So obviously on the ground, walking these things, you get your boots dirty on site, right? But in addition to that, these days we get our boots dirty by walking through demographic reports, right?
Mhm.
Who are the renters? We get our boots dirty walking through migration patterns, right? We
Mhm.
get our boots dirty walking through financial statements, what we call T12 statements, right? Seeing how a building has performed over the last 12 months, right? We get our boots dirty a lot of different ways than just walking a property. And that's a thing. A lot of people these days who are novice, right? Which is great. We like novice. We want to help them, right? They just go and get their boots dirty walking a property and they say, "Oh, it looks pretty. It has all new windows. The roof was replaced. Oh yeah, let's buy this building." And that's only one aspect of
Yeah.
getting your boots dirty. There's a bunch of different ways to be successful, right? When we're buying 153 apartments, right? We got to make sure we got it right for these
Absolutely.
investors.
Yeah.
We're dealing with people's savings, right? And it takes a long time to save money, right? We're dealing with people's saving. We got to get it right. It's not just we're going to go look at an apartment complex and, oh, the driveway looks good and the roof looks good and the windows have been replaced. There's so much more that goes into getting it right. So we get our boots dirty in a bunch of different ways. That's where that comes from.
I love it. All right. Where can people find you if they want to follow you and learn from you and get more knowledge?
Yeah, the best thing they can do is just go to our website, take a look. It's dirtybootscapital.com. Really easy. Go there, see all the different things we're doing, everything from doing coaching around real estate to doing syndication and buying large apartment buildings, right? Things like that. We're doing speaking on stage. Again, just trying to spread the word, trying to help folks. We'll actually be just got invited to a REI Real Estate Investor Summit at Sea.
Oh,
I can
wow.
send you the link for that as well. It's
Okay.
it's on a Carnival cruise line, 7 days at sea. You get a lot of enjoyment of a regular cruise, but you also get the the time to be listening to different coaches and different folks who have done it, right? The
Right.
the who's that have done it, right? We want to listen to people who have done it, who have, either done what we want to do or have a lifestyle that we want to have. Those are the folks we want to listen to. We don't want to listen to people like, like my neighbor, great person, but they don't know how to get to the next level that I want to be at, right? So I can't really go to them with questions. I want to go on a cruise with people who have done like what I want to do, right? I
Very
mean,
cool.
I'm tired of flying like, these commercial airliners. It's I fly a lot, I travel a lot. I like want to have a private jet, right? I'm not there yet, and it's not to be like snooty or anything, but it's like traveling. When you travel a lot, it's a pain in the ass. Like, am I going to talk to my neighbor about buying a private jet? They know nothing of that. I want to be talking to like the Grant Cardones of the world and other, people who have done it, right? So that's why this REI real estate investor cruise is going to be so fantastic. So I'll send you some info on that.
All right, sounds good, ladies and gentlemen. The world famous Tony Lopes. Good conversation. Me and him can talk forever, but we'll spare you guys our talk, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode.